We've had a very busy day of NHL news, including a couple of trades that we're going to recap here today, plus lots of trade talk around teams like the Ottawa Senators, Pittsburgh Penguins, Vancouver Canucks, and the New York Rangers. Plus, we also have news on the NHL waiver wire, several injury updates, plus news for the Four Nation Face-Off tournament, as well as some coaches that might be on a hot seat and who might be a potential replacement. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about here today. Just a recap, in case you missed it earlier, we have had a couple of trades today. There are dedicated videos on the channel recapping each one, but here's a quick synopsis. If you want a little bit more in-depth analysis, check out those other videos for sure. Today started with a goalie swap between the Colorado Avalanche and the Nashville Predators, sending Justus Annunen to the Predators for Scott Wedgwood. Now, of course, there was actually a draft pick with Annunen as well. It was him and a 6 for Wedgwood. So clearly, the Avalanche were a team that were looking to address their goaltending. They were not getting good results out of either Georgiev or Annunen. Wedgwood's not exactly putting up phenomenal numbers with Nashville this year, but he does have a pretty good track record of being, a reliable backup. He had probably 3 straight solid years there, I think, pretty fair to say, in Dallas before going to Nashville as a free agent this year. And, he's been steady, he's been reliable. They're hoping he can come in as a veteran guy, 32 years old, and just kind of hopefully stabilize things. That's what they're looking for. With Annunen, he's not like he's super young. He's almost 25. I think he's been around long enough that they know what they've got. I mean, he's never been, in my opinion, amazing, but he's also been, in the minors, he's been decent. So, I hope they didn't give up on him too early, but at the same time, they need to figure out a way to, contend right now. So I don't think they're looking, too far ahead here. So hopefully Wedgwood can stabilize things. And from a Predators perspective, if they have to kind of rebuild or retool, at least they get a younger goaltender to add to their system here. Who can work with UC Saros and, still has time to become a more solid netminder. The other trade today, of course, was David Jiricek finally dealt from the Blue Jackets. He's been traded to the Minnesota Wild. He was traded along with a 2025 fifth-round pick. And in return, the Wild get a pretty good haul. They get a young player, Damon Hunt, as well as a 2025 first-round pick, a second-round pick in 27, a third-round pick in 26, and a fourth-round pick in 26. The first-rounder next year in 25 is conditional. It's top 5 protected, which is going to be an unlikely scenario that Minnesota runs into that. If for some odd chance they do, they can bump it out to 2026. But, that's a pretty good haul for Columbus. Minnesota gets to add a pretty solid right shot D prospect. They've got Brock Faber there. They've got him now in Jiricek. They've got Zeev Buljum on the way. You get other solid veterans around like Brodin, Spurgeon. They have a lot of potential there for a really good blue line long term. They're going to be a really interesting team to watch. I really like this pickup for Minnesota, and I do like the return for Columbus. Based on, now in case you're not familiar as well, after we lost Cap Friendly and started using some of the other sites a lot more like Puckpedia, they have a really cool tool on their website where it evaluates the value of a draft pick. And if you put together these picks that Minnesota gave up to Columbus for Jiricek, it says that it's equivalent to a first-round pick around 8th overall. So if you think a Jiricek was 6 overall, that's what they get here in this value. So in all, I think it's pretty good. This 2025 draft that's coming up does have some good-looking prospects early in the first round. If they feel Jiricek's not a great fit, if he felt like he wanted to move on, I think they did okay in the process here. So we'll see where things go. News from the NHL waiver wire today. The Montreal Canadiens have Raphael Harvey-Pinard on waivers. Of course, he's been out all year due to injury. He's been down on a conditioning stint, and now he needs waivers if they want to send him to the American Hockey League for an extended stay. So we'll find out tomorrow if he clears. I suspect, given how long he's been out with injury, that he probably will, but we'll find out tomorrow. Some updates around rosters tonight. We saw the Maple Leafs. They got Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes were back in the lineup. Alex Steeves was returned to the American Hockey League. Bobby McMahon placed on injured reserve. So that's the latest there. Kucherov missed a game for Tampa with a lower body injury considered day-to-day. Tampa had recalled Connor Sherry to play into the game this evening against the Maple Leafs, and they returned goalie Matt Tompkins to the AHL. The Kraken had also recalled forward Mitchell Stevens. The Blues got Philip Broberg back today, which is a nice addition, but they did lose Pavel Buchnevich, who left their last game early. He was out today and is considered day-to-day as well. In the Rangers, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, healthy scratch Riley Smith. So certainly not afraid to, make some tough decisions back there as Peter Laviolette. The Rangers had previously lost 5 in a row. They did pull off a victory against Montreal, but it was only because of a late third period double minor penalty to Kirby Dach that allowed them to get a power play go-ahead goal to seal up the victory. Otherwise, Montreal looked like they were going to have a shot to at least take this to overtime and possibly hand the Rangers their 6th straight loss. But they managed to overcome and take advantage of the penalty and get the 2 points in regulation at that. Now, some updates from the world of coaching, and we've seen a couple of changes already. There's reports out there that there's multiple teams now that have inquired and are considering, what Joel Quenneville, Coach Q, what he would be like as a potential head coach replacement. There is word that even a team like the Rangers and Chris Drury have at least kind of, looked into that. I don't know that Peter Laviolette's in trouble with the Rangers. I think a trade is more likely, but apparently they've kind of checked into it. From what we're hearing in Detroit, also has kind of done some due diligence and checked in on the possibility of talking to Quenneville as well. I think Detroit and Derek Lalonde being replaced is a more likely scenario. For New York, I really think it's going to be, a big trade is more significantly, something that we're going to see here more so than a coaching change. But time will tell. Some updates on the Four Nation face-off. Elliotte Friedman reported tonight that Team Canada will not be eligible to name Kraken goalie Joey Daccord. There's been a lot of talk about his availability and his eligibility to play for Canada. Here's the thing. Joey Daccord, in case you don't know, his dad's Canadian. His mom is from Switzerland. So he's got dual citizenship. But he was born in the United States. So he's technically an American citizen, but he's also a Canadian citizen. I'm not sure where things stand with Switzerland. But he does have, 2 non-American parents. So, but they were living and working in the U.S. when he was born, and he grew up there. However, he is Canadian citizenship, and the U.S. goaltending situation for international hockey is way deeper than the other countries, so he's probably not going to get an opportunity there anytime soon. But apparently, even though he is a Canadian citizen, he does not hold a Canadian passport presently, so he is not eligible to be selected right now by Canada to be on the roster. Now, what Elliotte Friedman explained was that what he's been told is if for some reason one of the other goalies that are selected is injured and unable to participate in the tournament, if Joey Daccord takes the time now to get a Canadian passport and he has it by the time the tournament starts, he could be named as an injury replacement. And even if he does play in this tournament or not, because it's not a sanctioned IIHF tournament, it will not affect his ability to play at the World Championships or the Olympics for any specific country, because it's where they're the ones that kind of control that ability to not change around. And once you play for a country, that's it. You're stuck there. But where this is not an IIHF event, this is put on by the NHL, it really won't matter from that standpoint. He could still, if he takes the time to get a Canadian passport, he could play in the next Olympics or World Championships or what have you. And of course, he could still also, if asked, play for the U.S. or even Switzerland if he has the proper documentation for that country. Once you play for a country through the IIHF, you're there. That's where you belong from that perspective. So right now, that's what we know. And also other injured players, once the rosters are going to be named, because that's going to be named this coming Wednesday, injury replacements can be named right up until the day of the tournament. So we'll have to wait and see. Of course, there could be some players that are, questionable to be on this roster for Canada and the U.S., etc., that are dealing with injuries, and they could be replaced right up until the day of. So we'll see if we run into any scenarios like that. Now, in the rumor mill, lots of other trade talk around the NHL. Things are, fairly intense that way, with lots of talks. We've seen a little bit of action, and I would suspect in the next week or two, it's bound to, to continue and pick up a little bit. Kevin Weeks is reporting that there is more interest in Canuck winger Nils Hoglander. Adding, we heard that Pittsburgh was a team to maybe watch there, because we know that the Canucks are interested in adding on the blue line, and that the Penguins have a guy in Marcus Pettersson that they're interested in, so there could be a swap there. But apparently, according to some reports today, the Washington Capitals are also in that mix and have expressed some level of interest in Höglander too. So again, we'll see what happens there. Höglander's been a player that's been in Rick Tocchet's doghouse, hasn't had a great start to the season, and if they can swap him for another player to upgrade another area, that is something that they're apparently considering. So we'll see, but multiple teams in on Höglander. The Penguins have suddenly found themselves winners of the past few games, looking much better. I know Carlson and Letang have played better, which is a big part of it. But athletic writer Josh Yeo has made mention in a recent article that some players like Marcus Pettersson, Rickard Rakell, you can probably consider as good as gone, even though they've had a bit of a win streak here lately. I don't think anybody's fooled by it, that they're certainly by no means contenders and likely not going to be a playoff team. So I still expect Kyle Dubas to be busy, and if he finds opportunities to make deals that'll help the team in the future, then he's going to make those moves. So Rickard Rakell and Marcus Pettersson are certainly names to watch on that front. Strictly from a contract perspective, it makes sense that they might consider that. When it comes to Ottawa, of course, Friedman's been reporting that they've been considering some moves on the D front with the injury to Artem Zub, that they're kind of exploring some options, if you will. Not only do they have the Zub injury, but they have some youth back there with Clevin and Bernard Docker, who's had some great games, and they've had their struggles at times too. I think they kind of wish they had a little bit more depth back there so that we know if the kids are not playing up to snuff, that they can have a veteran, stabilizing presence back there to put in. And with Zub being out, they kind of don't have as much of that. So they are exploring that. There's been some talk, from other reporters as well, suggesting that, they are kind of mulling over some kind of core shakeup, if you will, after another not so great November. And we heard Josh Norris's name has been out there. But again, what Friedman was reporting tonight is that they're certainly out there doing due diligence, that they don't seem to be rushing into anything. They're just kind of checking some, doing their homework, so to speak, checking out some players that they might be interested in and kind of taking their time with this. They don't want to mess it up. If anything, you might see a small depth move, I think. But as far as a major change, I think we're still a little ways from that happening. Of course, they're on a California trip right now. They have one more game in Anaheim tomorrow. They come home. The next 10, 11 games is against mostly teams that are not playoff teams. I think it was like 8 out of 10 or something. That's a stretch that they absolutely need to hit home runs and win a high percentage of those games, or it's going to be too little too late again. So I do think they can make up for a not great November with a really good December, but I think we're going to be at that point before we see anything significant. But they're definitely doing their homework and seeing what's out there. And with the Rangers, Elliott's reporting tonight as well, after last week with the reports about Trouba and Kreider, that the backlash, the public reaction to it has been quite massive. Everybody's talking about it. So the Rangers are kind of probably taking the approach right now, kind of pump the brakes. They ended their 5-game losing streak today against Montreal. Even though it wasn't a really pretty game, they didn't have the greatest effort and the greatest result. They did get the 2 points, which is the main thing. But like I said, they took advantage of a late double minor penalty to Kirby Dach, scored in the power play. But it's one of those games where you could say maybe they don't deserve to win, but they found a way, that type of game. So after hearing about Trouba, after hearing about Kreider, teams are kind of looking at them going, well, what else might they do? Then Kakko's name has been out there a little bit too. Miller's name has been out there to a lesser degree. So I think teams are kind of swirling around going, well, if they really want to make some changes, what else might they be willing to do? What else might be available? I think internally right now they're looking at the protection of Trouba and Kreider, who do have modified no trades. Looking at what teams they can block, what teams they might go to, and just kind of exploring the market, if you will. But after the massive reaction, I think they're probably trying to maybe pump the brakes here a little bit and just kind of take their time. And again, make sure if they're going to make a substantial move, that it's not a knee-jerk reaction, that they get it right. And Chris Drury obviously knows that I think to some degree he works with an owner there that can be erratic and can make rash decisions. And I think that it's fair to say, based on Friedman's reporting, that he's a little bit concerned for his job too. So getting things right is very important there, keeping the owner happy. So we'll have to see where things go. The Rangers are very much still exploring deals, but it just seems like after the massive blowback and reaction of the past week and then the poor play, it was starting to pile up, and I think they might want to just hit the pause button here and just kind of reevaluate everything and all these players before they really get too serious about a trade. Is it likely a shakeup of some sorts coming? Very likely, yes. Unless they go on a massive win streak, I do expect that to be a real possibility, but exactly what they do is still being evaluated. Not a given for sure that we see, a core player traded from the Rangers like Trouba or Kreider, although that seems to be the names that, from a management perspective, that they are most interested in moving. But again, not something that's easy to do. So we'll have to wait and see where things go. So that is all your roundup of news and rumors for today. For November 30th, of course, tomorrow is December the 1. So November is a done deal. We're on to another calendar month here in 2024, the last one of the season. So certainly make sure you subscribe and stick around. This is the place to get all your updates for all your NHL news and rumors around the entire league. Thanks very much for watching. I will catch you next time.